All right, so everyone has their financial calculator, right? All right, so we told you this before, I'm going to mention it again. We strongly recommend getting the physical calculator, the BA2 Plus. You can also use the BA2 Plus Professional. This is the basic BA2 Plus. These are the professional, just an older, newer version. So setting up your calculator, you hit second and then format. It shows you that you have, so I have my calculator currently set up to 9 decimals. That's what you want. So if you hit 9 and then enter, enter's right here. That's going to store it to 9 decimals. What this is going to do for you is it's going to display up to 9 decimals, as many decimals as are needed for the problem. If you do this, then you'll have less issues with rounding. If you are struggling with a problem, when you're done with a problem, you hit second and then this clear TVM. That's going to clear your problem. You want to do that after every single problem that you solve, just to clear out the numbers that you stored from your previous problem. That way you don't end up having numbers stored from the previous problem, which will give you the wrong answer. If you want to clear out your work, you can do second clear work. This just kind of clears everything, including the time value of money piece. And then if you are having problems with your calculator, I call it ghosts in the machine. If you know what the answer is and you can't get it to work on your calculator, it could be something that you're entering in wrong, but if you know you're entering it right, I would suggest using second and then reset and then enter. And that will just completely clear out all of the settings in the calculator. Now it will also clear out your formatting. So you'll want to do again, so second, format, 9, enter, just to get your decimals back. You shouldn't have to do that too often, but every once in a while it will be necessary just to get everything to work properly again. Oh, so tip for you, if the calculator isn't working, try a reset.
Okay, thank you, Amber. So now we want to go over some basics of time value of money. And let's start with the steps that you need to take to solve every time value of money question. So first of all, you need to identify the items that you're given in the question. We have payments, we have present value, future value, annual interest rate, and the period that you want to save or invest, which is N, the number of years. Also, you need to make sure you pick up the right sign for your entries. So if the money is going away from you, basically you have to have a negative sign for that transaction, that amount of money. But if the money is coming back to you and you put it in your pocket, it's going to be a positive number. So make sure you pick up the right sign for your money values. Either it can be future value, present value, or even the payments. Otherwise, you will get an error, which is error 5, and we will talk about that error in troubleshooting section. So when you pick up a right sign for your money values, then you need to decide on your compounding. So if you have compounding term, you need to adjust N, which is your term, and also your annual interest rate. If you have, basically the default is annual, so you don't need to change anything. But if you have quarterly, monthly, or semi-annually, you need to adjust these three items, which on the N and interest rate. So if you, and of course payment. So quarterly, you need to divide interest rate by 4 and multiple N by 4. Monthly, we have 12, and for semi-annually, just use 2. All right, and once you just solve the problem, make sure you double check your result and make sure it makes sense to you. All right, and we will see a lot of examples in this presentation, so let's continue. All right, now we want to solve for present future value. If you want to, so here you want to invest $500 today, and annual interest rate is 6.5%. How much you will need to how much you will have after 5 years? Okay. All right. So first, let's start with n. N is your number of years. So you basically hit 5 and n. And for annual interest rate, you will have 6.5. You don't need to put percentage. So just pick the number and hit interest rate button. And after that, present value, because you are investing, so the money is going out of your pocket. So you need to have a negative sign for 500 and then press present value. And then because you don't have any monthly payments, so the PMT is going to be 0. And once you are done with just entering the numbers, hit compute and future value, which is going to be $685.04.
Notice when you enter in your negative, you do have to hit this 500 and then the plus minus key to be able to keep the negative. If you hit the negative key first and then enter your number, it's going to lose the negative. So make sure that you hit the number and then the negative.
Okay, and here's the answer for the question. Okay, next question. So now, again, just to practice, you can click on second and clear your TVM buttons. Also second and clear your work. Okay. So here you want to save $100 per year at an annual interest rate of 7%, and how much you will have after 10 years. So again, 10 is going to be our N, 10, and then press N. For annual interest rate, you have 7. PV is 0 because you don't have any initial initial balance. So it's 0 and PV. Here, because you want to save 100 each year, so your PMT is going to be 100 and saving is negative sign. The money is going out of your pocket. So negative 100 and then press PMT. And we are looking for calculating future value. So hit compute and future value. And you get the answer here. And yeah, here is the correct answer. 1381.64 cents. So any questions so far? All right. So now we want to solve for PMT or payments. So here in this question, we have, let's say, Isa took out $25,000 loan from a local bank with 7.2 annual interest rate to purchase a car. How much would Isa have to pay per month to pay out this loan in 5 years? So because we are on loan payments, it means that we have compounding term. So now again, you need to clear up your work, and then once you're done that, now we have compounding term. And because we are talking about monthly payments, first you need to multiply your number of years by 12. So n is going to be 60, and then hit n. And for annual interest rate, you need to convert it to monthly interest rate. So 7.2 divided by 12 is going to be 0.6. So 0.6 is going to be your interest rate. Present value is positive because you are taking a loan and you take the money, put it in your pocket. So $25,000, and again it's positive. So it present value, and the future value is going to be 0 because at the end of 5 years you want to pay it off. So 0, and then hit future value. And finally, you can compute for PNT. And PNT is negative because it means that during those 5 years, you need to pay off your loan out of your pocket. All right? So next question is to solve present value. All right. Your goal is to have $1,000 in 5 years, assuming your investment account earns 9% interest per year. How much money do you have to put into that account today to accomplish your goal? So N is 5 again, and interest rate is 9. We don't have any compounding term, so you can just leave N and interest rate like they are given. And then present value, we need to solve it, so we don't know it. And then payments is 0, and future value, because your goal is to have 1,000 in 5 years, the future value is 1,000. So again, go ahead and clear your Word and clear your time value buttons, and 5 is equal to N, 9 is our annual interest rate, PNT is 0, and for future value, you can just put 1,000. So 1,000 is positive because you want to have 1,000 in your pocket after 5 years. And then if you hit compute and present value, you will get negative $649.93. So if you invest today, it means that you put the money out of your pocket and put in your investment account. So that's why we have a negative sign here. All right? So any questions so far? All right, so here's the next question. Now your goal is, again, to have $1,000 in 5 years, but instead of having annual interest rate, we basically have monthly compounding because the interest rate is given compounded monthly. All right, so you need to adjust N and interest rate. 5 times 12, let me clear my calculator. So 60 is the N, and then 9 divided by 12 is 0.75 is our interest rate. So 0 is PNT and positive 1,000 for future value. So if you go ahead and compute for present value, you get 638.69, which if you round it up, it's 70 cents. All right. Now let's see how we can use calculator to solve for N. Here's the question. You want to buy a car, you will borrow 22 grams and the dealer offers financing at 6% and monthly payments of 425. How long does it take to pay off the loan? So we need to solve for N, knowing that because this is a loan, it means we have monthly compounding. First of all, you need to adjust interest rate. 9 divided by 12 is going to be 0.75. Okay, so so 0.75 is the interest rate. Present value, the loan amount is positive $22,000. and you're going to pay 400. Oops. Okay, and then 425 out of your pocket as your loan installments. So this is going to be your payments, okay? And after the the period that you want to calculate, you will have zero balance for your loan. So if you click compute and end, you will get 65.76. But just be careful, this is not the final answer. You need to make this, turn this to number of years, because 65 is actually the number of months that we found here. So if you divide this by 12, you will get the number of years, which is 5 years and a half. So let's see if the answer is right. Yes. So does it make sense, guys? Are you with me? Okay, awesome. All right, next question. So here again, we want to identify the items. Sam refuses to retire until his retirement account has a balance of at least $500,000. Sam won't make any more deposits in the account, so we don't have any payments. Payments is zero. And then the account currently has a balance of $300,000. So this is our present value, and because the money is going out of Sam's pocket, it has negative sign, and earns 7% per year, compounding semi-annually. So again, we have a compounding term here, 7 divided by 2, 3.5 is the interest rate, and future value is going to be $500,000. So again, clear up your work and TVM buttons. 3.5 is the interest. Negative. Okay, maybe let me just start over. 3.5 is the interest rate, and then $300,000 with negative sign is our present value. PMT is 0, and $500,000 is the future value. Okay. So if you insert all of these and then hit compute and end, we have 14.84. And again, this is the number of months or the number of semi-annuals. So divided by 2, you get 7 years and almost half years, 0.42 years.
So real quick question for you. So it's 7.42 years. So if we wanted to know how long until Sam can retire in years, so how many full years will it be until Sam can retire? How many years would that be? 8 years. Right, so is it 7 or 8? All right. Got a couple of responses. So yes, you guys are right. It is 8 years. So there is a partial year in there. So even though 7.4 does not round to 8, we still have more than 7 years. So when you're dealing with solving for n, you need to pay attention to that. Usually you will round up.
All right, so the next session is using the calculator to solve for interest rate. So here you have a goal to invest $1,200 today and have $10,000 in 7 years. How much interest do you have to earn annually to accomplish this goal? So again, let's go back to the calculator and clear up our work. All right. So n is going to be 7, number of years that we have here. Present value is 1200. And also it has a negative sign because we invest today out of your pocket. So negative 1200 and then press present value. You don't have any payments, so 0 PMT. And after 7 years, you want to withdraw $10,000 from your investment account. So positive $10,000 future value. And then if you click on compute and annual interest rate, I mean the interest rate is going to be 35.37%. Okay. Okay, let's move on and see the next question. So your grandmother told you that when she was born 7 years ago, a stamp cost 2 cents. Today, a stamp costs 64 cents. What's the average rate of inflation? So here, inflation rate of inflation basically just the interest rate that the cost of a stamp, has been growing through these 7 years. So if you click on second, clear your TVM and your work, we have 7 years as n, and then the present value is going to be, oops, it doesn't. So 70 is n, and we have negative 2, okay, 70 is n, and 2 negative is the present value, PMT is 0, and the future value, which is today, is 64 cents. Okay, and then click compute and interest rate. So the rate of inflation is 5.07%. And we got it right.
5.08%, because remember you have to round correctly.
Yeah. All right.
We have a question online.
Yeah.
Eric wants to know if we can elaborate on if the stamp costs 64 cents today, then why wouldn't we put it as present value?
Great question. So I want you to take the word present value and just think of it as a variable. Just think of it as PV. Don't think about the present part of it. So if we were to look at a timeline, so this is the beginning and this is the end. So we have our present value at the beginning and our future value at the end. So anytime we're looking at a problem, you can envision this timeline. The present value is always the beginning, future value is always the end. In this last problem, today was the end because Grandma was born 70 years ago. So what the problem was saying, let's go backwards. So 70 years ago, the stamp cost 2 cents. Now it costs 64 cents. So if you were to draw our timeline, so this was 0, and this is now 70 years later. It costs 2 cents here, and it costs 64 cents here. So at the end of it, this is our future value. The stamp costs 64 cents. That's 0.64. At the beginning, it cost 0.02. Does that make sense? I've had some students in the past, it's helped them to think about it. Instead of present value, think about previous value. It's not technically the correct term, but it can help you think about the problem correctly. We have a previous value and we have an end value. And this is actually a really important point because on the exam you might see problems like this. And you might see problems, or you probably will see problems that are talking about something in the past. A lot of times in personal finance, we are dealing with stuff in the past because we say we've been investing or we invested something. And now later we want to know how much we have. So you need to think about the present value just as the beginning and the future value as the end. Okay. Great question. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about troubleshooting. What do you do when there's a problem? If you get an error on your calculator, it says error 5. This means that you entered in the wrong sign. So let's say we were to put in that 2 as positive present value, 0 for our payment, 64 as our future value, 70 years, and we try to solve for our interest rate, we're going to get this error 5. Now the calculator is upset because we did not have a negative in there. So if you're confused about what you put in the calculator, I love this recall button right here. It's my favorite key. You can hit recall, present value, oh sorry, there the error. Recall, present value, it shows you 2. Recall payment was 0, recall future value is 64. So you see that you have 2 positive numbers. Remember, we have to have cash in and cash out, so one of those has to be negative. So we can pull that present value up again, it's 2. We can hit the negative key and then hit present value again. Now it's a negative 2. Now if we were to hit compute interest rate, it works just fine. So anytime you see the error 5, that's probably the most common error you'll get on your calculator. That just means that you forgot one of your negatives. Now, if you forget a negative, that won't always come up with the error 5. If you were solving for future value, the error would not come up because it's going to automatically give it to you, give you the negative. Okay, so if you're getting an answer that just doesn't seem right, always go back and check your compounding. Checking your compounding is so important. I cannot stress this enough. One of the most frequent things, one of the most frequent errors that students make on exams is to not check your compounding. So always go back and check it, and be careful about your compounding. Semi-annual is 2, quarterly is 4. I think everybody's okay with monthly is 12, but would you believe that some people think that quarterly is 3 because there are 3 months in a quarter? But remember, it's 4 quarters in a year. So always keep that in mind. So make sure to enter your interest rate in as a whole number and not a decimal. If you enter it in as a decimal, you're going to get a very, very small amount. Okay, so now I want to talk about some tips and tricks. So always do a sanity check. When you're solving something, when you're solving for future value, the future value should be larger than your present value. If you're solving for, or if you have payments in there and you're solving for future value, again, the future value should be bigger than the number of payments times the payment amount. Which makes sense. If you're depositing, actually I have an example of that next. If you are finding a loan payment, then the loan payment amount should be bigger than the number of payments times the payment, The payment amount times the number of payments should be bigger than the loan amount, which makes sense because you have to pay the loan back and you have to pay interest. So you want to make sure that if you multiply those out, that's going to be bigger. You don't know the exact amount of the interest just off the top of your head, but you can always just do a ballpark and say, is this supposed to be bigger or smaller? So always step back from the calculation and think about the problem logically. If you had never had this class, if you were just looking at the problem and thinking about it, there's a few things that you can pick up without the time value of money. So step back and look at it. Does the answer make sense? So on Grandma's problem with the stamp, if we'd come up with a negative interest rate, we would know we did something wrong because interest can't be negative. Again, if you solve for n and you get a negative n, you did something wrong. Remember, n and I cannot be negative. You have to have a positive number of years and a positive interest rate, at least in this class. Okay, so here's an example for a Sammy check. We are making monthly deposits of $100. So monthly, monthly deposits of $100, and we're earning 3% interest. So how much do we have in 5 years? So without actually solving this problem, I don't want to look at the interest rate right away. So I'm going to cross that off. What I do want to know is we're making monthly deposits of $100 for 5 years. Oh, no, the interest rate. So that's, if we take that $100 times 12 months, we know that we're depositing $1,200 per year. We know that we're doing that for 5 years, so we know that it's $6,000. So that's 5 times 1,200. So right away, we know that we have to have more than the $6,000. If we don't, then we plugged something in wrong on the calculator. Does that logic make sense? Awesome. Okay. So if you have a loan, remember the future value of the loan is going to be 0. We want to pay off the loan. So always remember, if you're trying to put something in for future value and it's a loan, it's wrong. Money going out of your pocket is negative. So if we're investing or making a loan payment, it's negative. It's a little counterintuitive when we're talking about investing, but think about it as money I can spend. I can no longer spend this money because I'm saving it and investing it. I can't spend it, so that's a negative. The number is going to be positive if it's money coming back into our pocket. This is now money I can spend. So if I'm withdrawing money from my savings account, my checking account, whatever, if I'm getting a loan, those are all positive because it's coming back into my pocket. And when you see a loan problem, and it's very tempting to want to think that you're getting a loan, which means negative, if you're going to be using it to buy something, but don't think about that. Think about just the loan component of the problem. You are getting money in your pocket that you can use to spend on something. So that's going to be a positive. And of course, always check your compounding and don't round your interest rate. If you plug in your calculator, okay, so if you have a problem that is 5% monthly, 5 divided by 12 is a really nasty number. If you plug this into your calculator as 0.1 or 0.41 for your interest rate or 0.42, you're going to get a very different number, especially if you have a longer term. So always when you're compounding, type that in your calculator and then hit interest right there so that it keeps the number in the calculator. You want as many decimals as you can possibly have in your calculator. Okay, and then my final note, stop and ask yourself, which variable am I solving for? Don't just assume you are solving for the remaining variable. If you set up a problem and you plug in all your numbers and you have one box left, don't assume that's the number you're solving for, because you might have put one of your other numbers in the wrong spot. So always make sure to read the question and independently think, what am I solving? And honestly, I like to start there anyway. I like to start and think about what I'm solving for because it does often make it easier to find the other numbers. But just look at each one independently. Don't assume anything.